Hi, friends. Esther Angell here with Unexpected Advice. Thank you for joining us again today. And we will say it at the end, but if you haven't already liked or subscribed, please do so. Today, we are joined by Nick Thurman. And full disclosure, he is my cousin. We are related. You can see through the smile. You also see from our weird sense of humor as we go along. But Nick is a lawyer in Southeast Oklahoma. He's actually done a tremendous amount of public defense. So he's assistant DA for a county there in Southeast Oklahoma. He's now just recently taken a job as an assistant city attorney for the city that he lives in. I'm really excited to hear about that. But his background has pretty robust. So we were talking about this and it actually kind of blew me away. Like, well, I've done this and I've done that. So you have prosecuted a lot of murder and drug cases. You've received the Director's Award from the Bureau of Narcotics. You are president of the Pontotoc County Association, and you are a board member for the State Oklahoma Bar Association. So you are very involved in not just the legal going on of where you live, but kind of for the state as a whole. So it's really cool to have you. Thank you for joining.
Well, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Well, as everyone knows, if you've listened to this at all that's great, but that's not what we're going to talk about. What we're going to talk about today with Nick is we're going to talk about parenting. And this was really interesting to me when you brought this up and you said, I'd really like to talk about parenting because when we think about the advice that we wouldn't necessarily expect someone to come with, I do have to admit, having advice on parenting from my younger cousin, I changed the diapers. That's all I'm saying. I'm saying it happened. Yeah, that was really cool. So I'm curious to start with what made you think like, hey, I really want to talk about this.
Well, and again, I am in no way an expert on this whatsoever, but what I have done is I've got 3 kids of my own. They're younger. And again, they're 2, 5, and 7. So I don't even know if any of this stuff, my theories will pan out for me. They all mind up, in prison. I don't know.
We'll check in 10 years. We'll check in 10
exactly.
years.
But what I do know is that the influences I've had with those around me, like yourself, changing my diapers, but your mom and dad, my mom and dad, grandparents, how they've affected me and changed me, how I've been able to evaluate all of the things that they did and the advice that they gave and the techniques that they used, and how I'm trying to pick and choose things that I liked about that, remove the stuff that I don't, try to do away with some of the generational trauma. And
what? Generational trauma? I don't know what you're talking about. Twitch. I twitch.
And apply it to my own kids and hopefully, experimenting and seeing if they can build on that with their children.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'll tell you, a lot of it came from your brother reaching out to me and says, hey, I want to start being more intentional about being a parent because I work at all the other things with my job, my hobbies, and I spend a lot of time and I focus time that this is what I'm going to do to improve in that. And I don't really do that for parenting. And so he recommended some literature to me, which I'll talk about, that has encouraged me to be more proactive about how I want to address certain issues with my kid and have my wife with that as well.
Yeah, that's a really interesting thing in doing it together. How have you and Hannah really spent time getting onto the same page? What was that journey like?
So again, before we decided to have kids, that was a discussion we had. How are we going to discipline? How are we going to raise them? And, and we don't always agree with everything that we're going to do, but it's at least a discussion. And we go, listen, this is kind of what we're wanting to do. And actually today, as a matter of fact, Hannah goes, well, a little bit of discipline goes a long way. I said, yeah, it sure enough does, especially with my 3 kids, which and we'll go into discipline to start off, is that each one has a different way that discipline affects them.
Yes. Well, and different types of discipline are effective with each one of them.
With personalities and everything. And so my oldest daughter, she's a people pleaser. And so, you give her the wrong look and she melts. So it didn't take a whole lot of discipline on that. My son is the most hard-headed, stubborn child I've ever met. I don't know.
Related to us? What?
Exactly. I would literally have to sit in front of the door. I was like, all right, you're going to sit in your room. And I'd have to sit in front of the door and he would try to crawl past. He was going to get past me no matter what. And then Farah, she did something I told her not to do and she did it and I spanked her and she turned and laughed at me. And me and Hannah turned at each other like, oh crap. And
well, that's not going to work.
Yeah. Well, and for your for your listeners, my youngest daughter's nickname is the Honey Badger. Because she's a beast. She's borderline feral, and so we're just hoping for the best with her.
Well, and at some point, I know this because my kids, Blythe, and the amount of confidence there. And it's painful at some points, but then also as adults, you're like, I am so not worried about this because no one's talking you into anything.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. You're not going to be easily dissuaded.
Now, she might be the one that's sitting there like, okay, girls, today we're lighting them up. Like that might be her. I don't know.
You
Hopefully
know
not.
what? That school would look really cool with some fire around it. I'm just saying.
I'm just saying.
There you go. But but and especially my dad and Chuck has his own ways of discipline. I remember running around your house multiple times and to get out our energy and running it
Yeah.
around the side of the car. And then my dad, he and there wasn't a whole lot of discussion to it. It was, you're doing
Yeah.
this, spank, you're done. This is
Yeah.
it. Whereas I've really, if I do spank or I do have to do something, some type of punishment, I will come back and explain why it happened. This is why we're doing this. This is what I want. I don't want you to lie because I want you to be
Right.
truthful and show integrity. So when you grow up, then you're going to be a truthful, honest person.
Yeah, and they get it. And I think this is a controversy, so let's go ahead and tackle it. Spanking, not spanking. Some parents
Yeah.
are like,
Oh,
that's
absolutely.
just evil. How could you possibly do that? And other parents are like, a child should be beaten, that they should fear you. So where
Mm-mm.
do you find that balance?
So never strike out of anger. That's the main point. This is a consequence. And my kids know that if this happens, that is the consequence. But I mean, little kids doing kid stuff, I mean, don't do that. That's dumb. Go clean that up.
Well, it's those
And I don't have a
consequences.
problem. Huh?
Yeah. It's the consequence, though.
Yeah.
You know, make sure whatever happens, whatever the action was, the consequence matches. There was some
Yeah.
good advice I got on that. Make sure it's connected because, like,
Life's
you're playing on
life's
your
full of
iPad when I told you not
consequences.
to. You don't get it.
It's exactly right. And stick with that. And that's one thing. If I tell her, hey, if you don't do this, we're not gonna, I don't promise something that's not gonna be able to happen. Like, I don't know. If I know we're gonna go to the park later, I'm saying, if you don't do that, we're going to the park later. I mean, I better stick to that. I can't,
Yeah.
I
Have
can't
you
say,
ever done that? Have you ever made that and then
oh,
realized, like, oh, wait, no. Oh,
yeah, no,
no.
yeah, we're definitely not going to Disney World now.
It's my punishment. Yeah, exactly. Well, here's the thing, though. Sometimes when you say those things, I realize afterwards, I'm like, this was a me punishment. This wasn't really
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
punishment. Dang
I've
it.
definitely. But again, it's not all about discipline. It's we've got to make choices that are going to benefit these children, and they're not always the best. Again, it's not always the best decisions for us.
Right.
Um, one thing that we've been very happy about is the decision to put our kids in a private school, which is, it's a Christian based private school. That was a tough decision because it's, and it's not a big deal for people that live in the city like you guys do, but out here it's a big deal. It's 30 minutes away,
Wow.
wherein
Yeah.
it's in a different town
Yeah.
where we've got all the schools around here, including the, schools that I now help where I live. And so we put them in this private school and we have to commute every single day.
Yeah.
But it's been one of the best decisions that we've made because Faye, my oldest daughter, she is 7 in the 3rd grade. So she's younger than everybody by about 2 years. And she's still a leader in that class. And actually, she's exceeding past the rest of them. And the school, though, recognizes that when she's done with her schoolwork first, they have created like a typing club just for her so that she can
Nice.
learn something while the other kids are trying to catch up.
Right.
And so
Right.
stuff like that, you're like, oh man,
Yeah.
that's
That's
huge.
I think that's another good part to talk. I've seen so many parents, especially with parents whose children are gifted or who have disability. It's this struggle of figuring out what's the best pathway for them because you want to give them normalized experiences in life at the same time, making sure that they're challenged and they're actually meeting their full potential. And that's a challenge. So how have you evaluated that for your kids when it comes to making some of these decisions and Hannah go about thinking through these things?
So it's a lot of prayer where we try to decide what's going to be best for them, what is going to help them succeed, and seeing what our kids are good at, and try to push towards that and encourage it and try to raise that. Booker, he likes sports, he loves sports,
Yes.
and but the thing is the best sports team might not have the best environment.
Right.
And so we're not looking for the best team or the best school. We're looking for the best environment, how to raise a good person. Because, and,
Yeah.
and one of the books that I'm very much relied heavily on, I really enjoy, is called The Intentional Father. You're raising adults that are good at being adults. And
Yes.
so how do you decide that, or how do you build on that?
Mhm.
I think the first thing is you got to decide what your own values are.
Right.
What's my family's values that I want to instill in them that they're going to have when they grow up? Um, mine's faith, integrity, and empathy. My dad was big into integrity. I mean, that was his thing.
Mhm.
He gave an integrity award at the basketball camps he would coach, and it was, do what's right even when nobody's looking. And I instill
That's
that in every one of
integrity.
my
Yeah.
kids and tell
Yep.
them. I said, "What's integrity?" And they'll all be able to tell you. They got to have faith that God's going to take care of you, and then you're gonna have empathy. You're gonna love others, and that's just that's especially confidence is not an issue with Faye or Booker or Fair for that matter. They're full of
I think it's a
confidence.
byproduct. I think confidence is a byproduct of these things. So when you have that foundation, when you have parents that are intentional, these are byproducts of those. And recognizing where your children are struggling or not struggling is also the way that you build on to them being able to have confidence. I want to explore something a little bit. You talked about taking things that you liked and letting go of things. And coming from like generational trauma, I know you have some in your dad's family that was just like this crazy, crazy stuff. So how have you filtered through some of that?
Absolutely. I build on a lot of what my mother encouraged and taught and raised us. And she passed away in 2019 from cancer. But she was a big motivator in me wanting to be a good parent. And my dad, he was a basketball coach, and so he was gone a lot of the year. Once basketball season hit, he was gone for 2 weeks at a time, every 2 weeks. And then when off season hit, he was gone for recruiting trips, and he had opportunities to go coach in lots of different countries and everywhere else, which was great. But he wasn't always there with us. I mean, we still did some vacations. I mean, I'm not saying he wasn't there, but him being present, he was a workaholic. His job was to work. But again, his dad was terrible to him. He was abusive,
Yeah.
and yeah, abusive is probably the best way to put
Yeah,
it.
but abusive is the best word. And your dad really overcame a lot of that, which is
He did.
incredible thing to see someone overcome and then another generation. And then you're going to see that continue to pass down to where you really broke that
Well,
cycle.
and I was so mad at him for a long time because of, how growing up that he did this and he did that, or he didn't do this,
Yeah.
he didn't do that.
Yeah.
And I remember growing up going, well, I'm a parent, I'm never going to do that. But I've tried to be real intentional in not doing a lot of stuff that I didn't like. And so I knew that I wanted my dad there, and he wasn't there a lot. So when I first started as an attorney, I worked private practice. I was working 80 hours a week. 7 to 7. I had a new daughter. Faye was just born, and I was under a lot of stress. And so I made the decision that we're going to move our family out of Oklahoma City and go to a smaller town where I had set hours. I wasn't going to make the same money I was making, but my hours were 8 to 4. And my boss told me, hey, if you've got a program or you got a thing that you got to go to,
Yeah.
you go to that.
That's huge.
The stuff is here. We're going to take care of it.
Yeah.
I was home when I was home. And that has been one of the big things I have built on from what I didn't necessarily have. And then my mom was she was a big loving person, and she loved everybody, and she took everybody in. We had recruits. We had you guys. I don't know
Yeah.
how many of y'all ended up living with us.
At one point in time or another.
We had foreign exchange students.
Yeah.
We had foreign players. They all lived with us, and they all felt like she was their mom. And the thing that never made sense to me was I had, everyone felt like she was a mom, but I never felt like there wasn't enough love to go around.
Right. Yeah.
I never felt a lacking of love from her, even though everyone felt love from her. And so that's something that I wanted to build on. That's something I did
Yes.
want to take. And I wanted everyone to feel that love from me. And so, and that joy. And so I've continued to try. That's one thing I've been trying to focus on and bring that to my own parenting, and then also be a father there. And
Something that I think is interesting that is the good things that you bring from your parenting experience. I think seeing confidence in your parents. I think your parents were very, especially your dad, his ability to tell stories, to motivate people. What are some things that you've taken away from your parents and you've carried through to parenting and your parenting philosophy, or just tips and tricks?
so, yeah. So my dad was big, like you said, big on work ethic,
Yes.
proud of his work product, and his people skills was bar none. And
Yes.
in fact, one of the things that he encouraged me was, well, he used to say, he goes, you argue with me so much, you're becoming a lawyer. Like, that's not a decision. You're going to become one.
Yeah.
And I always thought that was dumb, but then, look me, I became a lawyer, and he guided me that way and encouraged me to do that, and actually said, like, one of his friends, that he one of his best friends, a family friend of ours, is an attorney, and he encouraged me and set up for me to and see if that's what I wanted to do, and realize that that is what I wanted to do. And so that type of encouragement, I think, was huge.
I think his ability to read people, but then give that encouragement and those insights and allow people to explore that on their own. I think that as a parent, it's critical. You have to recognize the uniqueness of each kid and
Mhm.
where they excel, and then encourage them into the areas where they excel.
Mhm, mhm. And
Yeah.
and I mean, some of these books, they'll encourage you to, when your kids get a little bit older, to take the personality test, see where they're at, and see
Yes.
what
Yeah.
they're good at, and help evaluate them. And that goes into, sports too, which,
Right.
Hannah's dad very much encouraged her to, "You're not playing any other sports. This is your sport, and we're gonna do this, and that's it."
Interesting. Okay.
And because of that,
Yeah.
she was like, "Oh, I'm not gonna play that sport." And so she was very anti-sports after that. And so pushing too hard is definitely something that you have to balance. So
Yeah.
Booker's great at sports. I'm gonna let him play sports, and whatever he wants to play, I'm gonna encourage it to him. And obviously I've got a leaning towards basketball, but I'm not gonna force him into it. But if he wants
Yeah.
to, then we'll go for it.
Yeah.
So I'll
Try
help
all the
him out there.
things. Yeah. You try. I mean, we're still like, I think Blythe, we finally found tennis. Like, she really enjoys tennis. But you know how many sports we had to go through that child to
Oh,
figure
yeah.
it out?
But you knew that okay, you've got athletic ability. You need to be
Yeah.
doing something because
You have to learn how to move your
you gotta
body.
find it. Faye is she's an incredible reader, she's an incredible leader, she's one of those people that can speak and people are gonna listen, and she's gonna encourage them one way or the other, whether it's good or bad, but she's going to. So, Hannah's already like, "Alright, she's gonna be our lawyer," and I'm like, "Well, she's probably right." Like, she's very
Yeah.
good at that, and seeing that early, and encouraging that, and trying to push things in there that we know that she's going to excel at.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, and your mom was she was a fascinating human. She was one of those great people I was privileged to know in my life. And there was always something that I admired a lot about your mom, and she's inspired me, is just really grabbing life with both hands, and life in all of its glory and pain and every bit of it. And I think that's a part of what made people around her feel loved, was because she was present and she grabbed everything that she could out of it. So I I found that something I took away, and even for my kids, like, let's grab life. We've got one life to live. Let's make the most of it. Make your life have meaning within that, and for whatever that means for you. So I'm curious, are some of the things, because your mom was such an impactful person. She was so influential in the people that knew her.
well, and I think, like you said, it influenced you. My dad influenced you, and I'll say your dad influenced me. You influenced me. It takes a village to raise your kids.
Man, yes.
And it doesn't have to be blood related. It just has to be the people that you're around are going to pour in them whether you like it or not. And so encourage them. We've got our church group and they got their own
Yeah.
kids and they pour into them. And Booker, it was after a basketball game and I was running through the lines, giving all handshakes, and Booker was acting like a punk because they lost.
Mm,
One of my
so
buddies goes, "Booker, no." Booker turned around and did what he's supposed to do. And he was like, "Hey, man, I didn't want to overstep." I'm like, "Listen, I would do the same thing for your kid." I said, "I
yeah.
want you to do that because if they're not doing what is right, then I need someone that's going to back me
Yeah.
up on that." And
It's not just you. You're not the only one out there with this philosophy, and that reinforces that. Like,
Mhm.
Dad really does know what he's talking about.
Yeah. Well, and it goes into your kids need to know the history of you and your family and why you are the way you are and why the way your parents
Yeah.
are. That
Yes.
this is a bigger story. Where is your place in this bigger story? And the
Yeah, that's
history
really
of
cool.
that and why we are the way we are and where we're going. Because if they can see the bigger story of it, then they realize the story's not about them. The world doesn't revolve around them. You get to contribute to something that is a beautiful tapestry and you get to build on it.
Yes. You
I
get to
get
be
to
a part of it.
build off the flaming side that's
Mhm.
it got really great things, but there's amazing things I can add to that, and I get to build on the Thurman side that, had a rough start, but we're working our way.
We're making our way, Fred. I mean, there were great things too, I think, on both of those. I like that as well because it creates vulnerability. I think a lot of parents feel like they can't be honest, like they have to have an affront with their kids as opposed to have that same honest like integrity. When you make the mistake, apologize. There's times like especially if I get mad, I'll get mad because I have the temper. I have to apologize. I have to say, I'm sorry, I did this. You didn't make me mad. No, I own my emotions. I own my reaction to my emotions, because then they see that demonstration. You have to live that out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I wholly agree. I think it's very important is that we want to give them a chance to be independent and to grow. And that's for sure. But, we have to make them choice and make sure that
Yes.
they're going to have their choices to screw up. And that was one thing that I did take from my dad that
100%.
was huge was there was always a safety net.
Yep.
He'd let me fall,
Yes.
but I knew that I wasn't going to crash and burn. I knew he was going to be there, but he was going to let me go ahead and do it. And
Yeah.
so to give him that choice to be independent, but we have to surrender it not only to them, but you have to surrender it to God to let them know that they're going to make the right decision when it comes. And if you raise them right, then they're going to. And in fact, Proverbs 22:6 says that direct your children onto the right path, and when they are older, they will not leave it. And so implementing those values and those things on their heart at the outset, then you have to trust that they're going to implement that themselves. You can't hover over them and make sure that they're doing it. You have to give that to them.
Because eventually they're going to make those choices. You want to give them every single tool that they need and the foundation that they need so that they can make the good ones, because they're not always going to be easy decisions.
No, they're not. But they got to know that they can come to you for advice afterwards. I call my
Yes.
dad weekly, almost daily. Anytime I got a big decision to make, I give him a call and we talk about it. And he works out because he's been there, especially in a professional sense for sure.
Yes.
He's seen it all. And so I have that resource and I always will have that resource. And then, talking about independence, like my kids now want to be independent. They see that they are allowed to make these choices. Now they strive to be more independent. What more can I do to show that that I can prove
You trust me.
myself? Exactly. And and there's a process that it's going to take a few years, but I'm being very intentional and have a plan on how I'm going to try and work through this so that by the end of it, they can go through knowing that I've made it. I know that I'm no longer a child. And
There's not there are a lot of cultures have that space, and it's a marker, a bar mitzvah, for example. But
yeah,
there's
yeah.
many countries have this type of quinceañera, for example, where it's this transition to adulthood. And in general American culture, we don't have that because, right, you can drive it. In some states 14 or 15 or 16, and then you have to register as an adult as 18 for the service, and then you can't drink until you're 21. So we've created all of these times that you're like, are you really an adult? Because if you're 18, you're still technically not adult because you can die for your country, but you can't buy a beer.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and you're not preparing for it all. It's almost like,
Yeah.
okay, you're a child, you're sucking on your sucker, and then boom, you're an adult now. Good luck.
Yes.
We didn't give you any way to prepare for it at all. We didn't tell you. We told you it was coming, but we didn't give you the tools to prepare for it.
So I think what was also fascinating to me is that because your kids are all Gen Alpha, and my kids are on the cusp of Gen Z and Gen Alpha, and I know it's been funny to hear Blythe talk about, like, they say this about Gen Z, but I don't agree with it. I'm like, well, you're really more of Gen Alpha, and in Gen Alpha, there is a lot more independence. There are some videos out of Gen Alpha as the next Gen X because they're more independent. The helicopter parenting thing's out the window. People are done with it. They're tired. All of us are like, no, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm going to teach you how to make decisions so you can go and play with your friends down the street.
Yeah, some turnkey kids. So that makes you feel confident that that's good. Well, we still have a shot.
Yeah, we still have a shot.
So Farrah, I don't even think she was 2 yet, busts in the room at 2 a.m. like she does. So I want milk. I said, no, I'm not getting you milk. You can go back to bed. She goes, well, I want to sleep in bed. I'm like, no, you're not sleeping in bed and you're not having milk. It's 2 a.m. Leaves. I'm still asleep or still in my bed. Hear her drag her stool to the refrigerator, open the refrigerator, grab her milk, shut the door, walk back in my room. She goes, milk, and gets in bed. And I was like,
well,
yeah. I was like, touche. All right, fine.
I mean, okay. It was always funny to me because Blythe was that independent. Like, she wants to figure out that she can do it. She refused to let you do it. And then after she figured out she wanted you, she's like, now I'm a diva. I need you to do this for me.
No, I need you to do this for me. Yeah.
Like, yes, you did. You just did it for a week.
You know how to do it. No, I get it. But
Oh,
that makes
goodness.
me real confident because having independent kids is good. Preparing them how to do independence the right way is another thing entirely. And again, I'm not an expert in any of this. I'm just hoping that it works out well for
We'll
me,
find
but
out.
we'll find out. Well, and here's the thing is how do you gauge success in that then? How do you gauge success in your parenting? How do you say that I've succeeded in this? And I think everybody's got their different levels of success. Mine was what my dad's marker was I want you to do better than I did. And I think that is a good marker of that. Like, yes, you're going to make mistakes. Yes, you're going to fall. Yes, you may not be president of the United States when you grow up, but did you build on what your parents did? And I want them to look at my parenting style and me and Hannah's parenting style and say, I liked some of that. I didn't like this. I'm going to apply this to my kid and I'm going to improve on this. And that's what the goal is even if it's not what I would agree with, they still can recognize and pick it out and not just be a carbon copy of it.
Yes. Well, and I think my definition has been around, will my kids be productive adults contributing to society off the payroll? And so like, are they successful? Are they stable? And they want to spend time with me. They still care about me. Like, that's it. That's really what I want. Okay. Like, if I can still have my kids calling me and wanting to hang out, like, to me, I'm winning.
And there's your mother. And there's your mother. So.
And boom. Thank
And
you.
boom.
Okay. Here's my question, and we can cover a couple other things, but you have been a lawyer for a while, and you are now still young in your career. You still have a lot of career left ahead of you. AI is really changing the landscape of law, and now you're in public, so a lot of the folks in private that I've talked to are concerned because a lot of the work that would be done by the noobs coming out of law school can be done by AI. And so they're concerned that, hey, how are we going to continue to educate? And how do you become a good lawyer by doing that work so you understand what a good and bad contract is, for example? So what advice do you have, or what thoughts do you have to share with people considering a career in law?
Yeah. Well, I think every lawyer out there will say hey, I want to be a lawyer. And they say, don't do it. Just don't do it. It's a bad idea. Do anything else. Be a doctor. No, I agree. That is a huge concern for private practice and especially new coming out of law school that wanted to get into private practice.
Yeah.
Because contract law, will and estate law, even some of the divorce law, it's going to be dominated by AI. Criminal law doesn't affect too much because the main issue is who did or didn't do it. And that's it. There's due process rights that will never go away. There's always going to be a right to a jury trial. There's always going to be boots on the ground. I've been a prosecutor for 8 of the 10 years I've been practicing. And in that time, I haven't had to use AI as much because one, the evidentiary legal issues have been more or less sussed out by the Supreme Courts and by your own state courts. And so there may be little tic-tac things about whether or not this was a violation of Fourth, Fifth Amendment rights, which, AI can help you kind of do with research. And I've used AI for research in that sense. But when it comes to, I still have to present that case to a jury trial, to 12 people that need to hear it. In person, that will hear what I have to say and see the evidence that I have to put on and decide whether or not that's what happened.
Yeah.
AI's help generating visual aids as far as, hey, because, we get a bunch of data and then we were able to convert that data into, a map or ping points of their telephone usage on their way to the murder or the crime or wherever that is. And so their technology is awesome in that sense. But if you're coming out, I'd almost encourage to go into the governmental sector, whether that's public defender or prosecution and there's lots of opportunities to do that. And it's great experience because when I initially left prosecution to go do private practice, which I had no experience. I had a little bit of experience in civil practice, but not as much as a lot of my classmates. But I was hired by a very successful firm for the only reason was they knew that I could handle myself in a courtroom. And that's it.
Sure.
And so the fact that I can go in front of a judge in any county in the state of Oklahoma and make an argument and ask for something and not be terrified to do it is a huge benefit. And so if you're coming out of law school, I highly encourage you going into public sector to start off. You don't have to stick there forever, but it gives you a great basis. It gives you great networking because most of those people are also on either side of you will not remain there. Well, yeah, for sure.
Excellent. All right. Well, I really appreciate it. Thanks for your time, Nick. And yeah, we'll be checking back in like 10 years and seeing how it turned out.
Exactly. So you'll see my kids' mug shots. It'll be great.
President Booker T for president.
That's
Woo-hoo.
right. That's right.
Thank you for joining us today on Unexpected Advice. If you haven't already, please click like and subscribe to whatever channel you're listening to so you get notified each time we post new content. We look forward to seeing you next time.